Good evening. Tuesday, the 11th of April, 2023. You're back for another episode of the Tiger Town podcast. Toby on the other end of the line. How you doing tonight? Sorry. Stumble. I'm only 30 seconds in. How are you, mate? You well?
It is night. It is night. It's about 7:30 at night. So yeah, you're doing well so far.
Good
Doing
start.
good.
Zach, I couldn't get my words out.
Doing good, mate. Doing good. Long weekend. Can't complain about that. So, just got a lot done around the house. Had some family time. So watched a pretty good half of football. So yeah, can't really complain.
Did you happen? Didn't get stuck into the Easter eggs by any chance? Chocolate overdose?
No. I didn't actually get stuck into them too much. I had about one of those little ones a day. Just trying to limit how many chalky Easter eggs I eat.
Yeah, right. I had one of those little ones I was averaging once every 3 or 4 minutes, I reckon, at one stage there. But
The time for
got to
it.
keep that if ever there's a time, mate.
Yeah, exactly. Like if there's ever a time to indulge in chocolate, it's that and Chrissy. So,
Absolutely.
but yeah. What about
Um,
yourself?
Myself, yeah, basically just already answered that question, so I won't go through it again. But yeah, averaged a little leg about every 3 or 4 minutes, and no, mate, it was good. Had a good weekend. Everything's doing well, and family's going well. A little bit of a break at the moment on leave from work. Not complaining about that. Been on the tools, all the good stuff. Watching a bit of footy in between.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty good life to have, isn't it?
Not complaining. Well, some things I'm complaining about. We'll probably get to that shortly. But on Easter Monday clash, Acor Stadium, Parramatta Eels play the West Tigers. Parramatta ran out eventual winners 28-22. Got yourself a brief little introductory thought on the game?
Probably the best half of football I've seen from us all year. That's all I can say.
Yeah, okay. And expand on that a little bit. In what ways?
Um, so obviously the first half, I don't understand. Like I understand how we were, and I'll get a bit more into that in a sec. But in every stat that mattered for that first half, we led, and we led by a lot in some of them. Yet we were 18 points down, or 18 to 6 points down. So yeah, it was frustrating to watch because this is not the Brooks bashing show, but I decided to look at him very, very closely this game because obviously he's playing up against somebody who we tried very hard to get and who pulled our pants down in that first half, in Mitchell Moses. So I decided to watch him very closely. And for me in that first half, he didn't look like a half at all. Not a first rate quality half in any way, shape, or form. I wouldn't even say a Reggie's half, if I'm being honest. He didn't dig into the line. Every time he ran across field to look for somebody somebody under, he was running straight across. He wasn't running a gap to sort of draw in defenders to create that option. His kicking game was, again, end over end. He didn't have the best pass options. Very, very, very frustrating to watch. In defense, he wasn't great either. He was probably one of the main reasons that first try happened. Came in when he didn't need to create that overlap. But then in that second half, it was like somebody had finally gotten through to him. It was like, because you'd have to say that the coaches have noticed a lot of these things because they're not idiots and they get paid to do this shit. And it was like someone, whoever it was, I applaud them, finally got through to him to say, this is what you're doing wrong. Don't do this, do this. Because then it was the exact opposite in the second half. He was digging into the line. He was taking the ball on. He was supporting Appy on almost every single carry Appy was there. He was that pass out to Kapoa to create that the first try in the second half. Like, that's the perfect choice. Usually he just offloads it to Papali and Papali runs it up. And you're like, okay, whatever. But I want to know what changed, what happened.
That pass
how
was beautiful.
it was. It was a
It was a
beautiful face pass.
it was a bullet as well. He threw it. I watched the replay back a few times, or the highlights back a few times, and yeah, it just was fired out of a cannon. It's just a perfect example of a beautiful pass.
Yeah. And then he had a hand in everything. He was defending well. It was one half for me is not going to take back all the criticism I've given him over the first like 5 or 6 rounds of this season. One half is not going to do that. But if he continues, if whoever's gotten in his ear keeps talking the way he does, and I see a little bit more for him, who knows? Maybe I'll change my tune. Um, maybe he is going to be a nice $400,000 halfback we can keep.
5'8", you mean?
5'8", whatever.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
like it was just a good half of footy to watch. It was unfortunate how it ended. I am a bit shitty with everyone blaming, especially how much I hate the media. The media are dickheads. They're blaming Charlie Staines for the loss. I thought he was probably our best on field. I think he had pretty apart from that over the Harbour Bridge pass to Junior Tupou in the first half. I thought his actual pass selection was very good. I thought he ran hard. His positional play was on point. He put his body on the line every time to try to make a tackle. He took some superb catches in that second half. I think he set up the second try in the second half as well. So it was unfortunate how it ended, but I'm not blaming Charlie Staines at all for that loss. I think he was a reason, one of the big reasons we were in that contest for as long as we were.
Anybody else stand out to you in that game? Are you particularly impressed by?
Junior Tupou. He just keeps
How,
getting better and better.
how could you not? 4 line breaks, try assist, 2
200
tries.
meters.
Yeah, he was a monster yesterday.
Oh my god,
He looks bigger every week,
he
bigger
does.
and more aggressive every week.
How's his stride on him, but imagine trying
Yeah,
to tackle those legs.
no, he's a beast.
It's that he made that rookie error, trying to the flick pass to go out the back, and we dropped it, and then they scored off that. But he'll learn from that. He'll learn, and we need to the more experience and the more time we give him, he has all the makings of being an absolute elite winger. And I'm afraid that people are going to see that sooner rather than later and going to offer him a big contract. So
We'll see how we go. He's off contract at the end of next year, so people can talk to him as of November 1. So it'd be good to see if they extended him beforehand. He's absolutely locked the wing position down.
Oh, by far. By far. What
and I
about you?
think,
Oh,
well, I'll go back to thoughts on the game. I mean, I agree with
yeah.
everything you said. The first half, the feeling just watching the game, if you went back and you filmed segments, 3-4 minute segments of my reaction to each of the independent halves, you'd think that they were on completely different days against completely different teams, because such was the difference in the two halves and how I was receiving it watching the football. The first half, they were so pedestrian. It was the same stuff that we've seen frustratingly all year. It was super lateral, both the passing and the positional setup. Everything was in second gear. Even if they fired off their spread or their passing system across field, even if they did that quickly, then they were too deep. Passes weren't finding the front of the chest or out in front of the hands. They were going back on the hip, and it was just everything else in that first half that we've come to expect. I reckon at the beginning of that first half, they were actually as lateral as I've seen them all year. And Parramatta just ate them up easy. And that's the big reason. Most of the time that we spent camped in Parramatta's half was in that first 20 to 25 minutes. And I reckon that's when we coincidentally looked our worst. I think had we had that possession in the second half, we would have run over the top of them easy. With such that we were playing that well. I think you mentioned Brooks, and you mentioned Charlie Staines. I really, really liked the way that those two with Appy have started to find some sort of a connection there. That can only get stronger. If you've got Brooks as that speedy, super nimble running 5'8" moving forward, and we'll get to talking about halfback, etc. in later in the show. But if you've got him there, you've got Charlie Staines learning how to sniff around, who being the top 3 to 5 people in terms of speed in the whole comp, if not higher. And then you got Appy doing what Appy does, then that's going to be dangerous around the middle in a fatiguing forward pack, in a fatiguing opposition, off the back of a forward pack that we know can do what it needs to be done, or what needs to be done. Sorry. So I really like that combination in particular, and I think it was off the back of that combination through the center that we broke them to shreds, that we were able to capitalize on the edges, and that's where we saw our edge game really pick up. Both on the right and the left, Tupou on the left, and Naden getting in on the right there. So I think the two went hand in hand. We carved them through the middle, and that sucked them in, which broke up their edges. So the execution was much better, but it was up tempo. Well, that's what it was. They played off each other's hip, and they played up tempo football. They didn't try to think early in the game, we need to do tackle 3 is this play, and tackle 4 is 1 under. Where's my 1 under? And then what's tackle 5? Kick to the corner. Okay, am I ready? Have I checked the playbook? They were just playing what they saw a lot more, it seemed to be. Playing a lot of front foot footy, as Appy put it. And I guess just, playing what was in front of them. So because our forwards ran quite a good game, we had really quick play the ball speed, an average of like 3.2 seconds over the whole game or something crazy. And that just allowed us, particularly in that back end, to be able to get those rolls on, and those three starting to chime in together. Was really good. I'll echo your sentiments on Tupou. He looks great, and I'm very, very pleased about his progress thus far. I just like the thought of what he brings. He's still going to make mistakes, like we saw on the weekend. He's probably going to have some reads, and he's probably going to have some fumbles at certain times, but he looks a brilliant prospect. And so really glad to have a young, hungry, intimidating, talented, speedy, big winger in our clubs that we can lock down. You were talking about Staines. I think Staines did enough to make sure that he gets the time now to be invested in him at fullback. I'd be sitting there going, I'll give you 3 months now, regardless of how you play, to see how you can sort of develop that game and work on those things that they've been talking about. I'll go just very, very briefly, because we've each had our monologue, and we'll probably get back to more conversation in a moment. But it shows evidentially, if that's a word, there appears to be evidence based upon the way that those players were playing on the weekends, that there is coaching, really direct coaching that's there, because there's been big change from some of the things that they were doing, particularly in that second half, which was Staines' ability to use his speed to get on the outside of his man when he's chiming in. They also used Staines quite a bit, or he was a lot closer to that ruck and sniffing around, particularly in that second half. You can tell that Brooks has been told to work off Appy a bit more. You can tell that the forwards are coming up over the advantage line when Appy's bringing them on a lot more. There was often times where there was off the cuff offloads or stuff or things like that, and nobody was caught unawares that I can remember, and everybody caught it and kept going. There just appeared to be instances where you can see noticeable changes week to week in some of these key players. That just speak to me that there's some decent coaching going on, and these players are taking on board and starting to apply it, and hopefully starting to see some fruits of the labour. So long may those combinations continue in and around the middle. And I hope that's a focus of our attack moving forward, rather than this side-to-side fancy play nonsense. Use your strengths. And I reckon Staines, Appy and Brooks sniffing around the middle off the back of quick play the balls throughout the game is a strength, a massive strength.
Yes, I 100% agree. And like it just showed that second half what we are capable of when people just know what they need to do It's not like I saw Brooks be the most vocal I've seen him all year. He was yelling at people, telling them what to do, and that was before we'll get into his sec, but the unfortunate injury to Dewey. He was just. It's just interesting that you mentioned the fact that there was some clear coaching going on, because that's kind of what it looked like to me in the second half. Was they're finally listening to the coaching. That's what I'm taking from that. It's maybe Appy's having a bit more of a say now. Maybe Appy's like, this is how we should be playing, and Farah's maybe taking a bit of a step back and letting him run his own show. Who knows? But yeah, it was very pleasing to see. The result wasn't what we wanted, but like you said, if we got that amount of possession in the second half as opposed to the first, we would have steamrolled them.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. I've just got up the stats here. I'm just going to run through them because they make for some really interesting reading. So Parramatta won the game 28-22, obviously. Now, we had 50%, 57% of possession.
Yep.
Our completion rates were comparable. They were both about 76%, 76, 78. We ran for nearly 2,000 metres, so 1,968 metres. Now, some of this stuff can be comparable to the amount of possession that a team had, and we obviously had more, but that exceeds what that ratio is. Post-contact metres, 556 to 418. We made 6 line breaks to 4. We made 39 tackle breaks to 17. Our average set distance was 45.6 metres. Theirs was 39.2. So our average set was 6.5 metres longer than their average set, which is a significant amount. So play the ball speed, 3.2, I said earlier. We had 15 offloads to 8. We had four forced dropouts. We made 293 tackles and missed 17. They made 357 and missed 39, nearly 40 tackles. They had 24 ineffective tackles and we had 13. And the penalties errors were comparable. So one thing I was thinking during this game is that particularly towards the end, as it looked like, not when we were coming back, but when it looked like we were in trouble, is that I hope that the myth that stats win games, you get your stats right, you get your completions, you get everything else right. The myth that has a massive factor on the deciding factor, on the game's outcomes, is something that needs to end, and people need to be able to look past that, because those stats, if you're looking at them without knowing the scoreline, they look pretty good.
Yep. And that's the frustrating thing. Like, that is the frustrating thing. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen these sort of stats put up, and it's not the first time we've beaten a team in terms of stats. We just haven't, bar that second half and maybe the second half against the Bulldogs, we haven't found a way to consistently pressure a line and then make the right choice to score. Now, I said it before and I'll say it again, 1.5 of football doesn't excuse Luke Brooks for the first 6 games. Doesn't excuse it. But if this coaching starts to take shape, if this coaching starts to drill into them, there is a high chance that we start seeing him turn things around. So who knows? I come from a long line of Tiger supporters, so it's no surprise that I have a cousin who is a diehard Tiger supporter, and he's actually a huge Luke Brooks backer, and he hates the fact that I bash him all the time. But if he turns his life around, I'm sure that my cousin will be turns his game around. I'm sure his life is fine. He's got a kid and he's got a lot of money. Um,
Is
returns,
he listening?
huh?
He'll be listening to the show.
Yeah, probably. I'm sure
Yeah,
he'll
right.
be very, very, very happy that
You
I am wrong and he's right.
got a shout out.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, Trent.
so to me, what those numbers point to is that the rest of the team, particularly the forward pack, are putting us in the positions that we want to be in games. You can't win football games if your forward packs are getting dominated, and that's been the story of us for however long, right?
Mm.
The issue wasn't necessarily we couldn't create points, and I'm talking over a large span over the last, let's say, particularly maybe 5 to 7 years. It was that our very rarely would we win the territory game, and so most of our points had to come from um, further away, or we didn't we weren't able to build pressure and weren't able to keep teams in the end zone. We weren't able to get down there to have those opportunities frequently. Tells me the forwards are actually doing quite a good job, which means that for the most part, as you said, we've won these types of stats earlier in this year in other games. Um, it means that again, we spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. It's narrowed our focus into what we need. The forward issue has been solved for the most part. I've got a few stats here. I've pinched these off NBWT, which is nothing but West Tigers on the Twitter sphere. So Clemmer in 2023, 6 games, he's had 53 minutes per game average. He's averaged 151 meters per game, 26 tackles at 99.4 tackle efficiency, and so that's Clemmer. Papali'i, who we've been a bit critical on, particularly earlier in the season. He's had 5 games. He's averaged 79 minutes a game. He's averaging 129 meters per game. He's averaging 33 tackles per game at 96.5% efficiency. And he has 2.4 tackle breaks a game. And we've got Bateman, who's come in for 4 games now. He's averaging 71 minutes. He's averaging 98 meters a game, 36 tackles per game at 94% efficiency, and 2 offloads per game. So I think that there, in terms of the people, I guess, that were brought in, these forwards that we had lots of high hopes for, it's a bit hard to kind of argue, I guess, that these guys haven't come in and aren't playing well. And that's a really pleasing thing because that goes against the trend of us for the last decade.
Yes, I agree. 100% agree. And I think that the forwards are definitely laying a platform. There are moments where I do question more so Papali's commitment, more so than the others. Reason being is, he had his last 2 seasons with the Eels. He was probably the best second rower in the game by far. So you can't say that when he won second row of the year in 2021, that was just a fluke. That was just a once off season that he had, because he pretty much backed it up the next year. And he looked aggressive. You look at his highlights, he looked like he wanted to do everything. He wanted to be in everywhere. He would just look like he had a purpose. Whereas probably majority of the games this year, he's making all those meters. Yes, he's doing this, he's doing that. But I still feel like he's doing it at half pace. I still feel like his heart's not in it. And I don't know. That's my perspective. And, everyone can disagree with me if they like, but that's just what I see. So Bateman, I
What did
think,
you think? What did you think of Papali'i's game on the weekend?
better. I definitely think it was better. It was against his old club, so there was motivation there. Does that motivation keep going? I'm not sure. I can say that when Bateman came on, he's got that competitive edge to him. He wants to, he just wants to win. That, like, if he's losing and things like, you can tell he gets angry and becomes a bit of a grub and all that jazz. And if you put on a West Tigers jersey and you have that, I'm okay with you being a grub. If you're Clint Gutherson and you're trying to hand the ball back to Asu Kapo at the end of the game, you're a fuckwit.
You know
Pardon
why he did that
French,
as well?
because he tried to strip it off him.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
he goes, "Oh, here, take the ball."
yeah, he's a
He's
dick. Absolute dickhead.
Yeah.
Someone needs to put one on his chin.
Lat track bullies. Speaking of Parramatta, I guess on the weekend showed exactly the reasons that we were willing to pay $1.5 million for Mitchell Moses. And not so much that it was necessarily Mitchell Moses, but it was. But more the fact that he was the difference yesterday.
100%.
If he plays for the Tigers yesterday,
We
not
win.
only do we win, but we probably smoke them.
Yep.
Because we got that close to them basically entirely off him.
Yep. 100%. He had 4 try assists, I believe. So,
No, he had 3. People were joking that the pass he threw that Stafford Toa took was a 4th.
no, I
But
think he had one in the second half too.
well, Mike Acevo scored the other 2 tries, so unless he threw one of those
Yeah,
balls and they
I think he
counted that, maybe threw one of
yeah,
them.
I think
Maybe.
he threw the cutout to Sevo and Stafford Toa
Okay.
had no idea how to defend on a wing.
Yeah. Yeah. Awful.
Woeful.
But yeah, so the point being that yeah, that was the difference. And you know, uh, yeah, showing the difference that a halfback can make, and showing the difference that a class high quality halfback can make to a football side. He dragged them there on his own back, and we didn't have the 3 grubbers that he kicked through, particularly off the back of last week with the 2 grubbers. In 2 weeks, that's 5 tries where the bounces have been absolutely perfect. Some of those, when they kept replaying it, I was just laughing and saying, just basically in disbelief.
Yeah.
Because not only were they not just end on ends, which you probably got a 40%, 50% chance of it popping up for you and not dribbling lower. You know, they do end over ends, do that run of low bounces sometimes.
Yeah.
Not meaning to get into the science of grubbers, people, but the ones from Mitch Moses were a variety. One was like a little chip grubber where you like poke at it and it's like a punch and then it could do anything when it lands. It's not end over end. The other 2 were just kicks off the inside, so they had a warble as they were rolling, and all 3 of them just popped beautifully into their hands at speed, at pace. Just unbelievable. Because my old man, who's a raging Eels fan, he texted me last night after the game. I turned my phone off, and he basically just said, "Yeah, we were pretty lucky with that one." It's 100%. Like, as much as Mitchell Moses created those opportunities, the luck from those three grubber kicks, and then, like I said, the flashback to Brisbane last week. Like, Sheens loves saying, "Oh, they scored tries from kicks," and I like retorting, "They're still fucking tries, you idiot." However, the nature of those tries, yeah, when it's going against you, it's going against you. And sometimes if we were flying high, all 5 of those probably just run along the ground and they go underneath, or they step over it, or they get a crook bounce. Or yes, they had a run of luck yesterday.
Yes. Yes, they definitely did. And then typical Tigers just had a run of bad luck. And we'll get into that a little bit now, I think. Had probably Adam Dewey really starting to find his feet again. No pun intended. And yeah, just a very innocuous landing. Does his ACL. Very
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sobering.
we haven't been we've been pretty vocal about his performances lately, but nobody wants to see that happen to anyone. No ACLs, nothing that's season ending. Like, I was talking to my wife before the game. You're like, we don't want anything bad to happen to Mitchell Moses. Maybe just a head knock where he's ruled out for the game. Doesn't miss 11 work days, just for the game. That's fine. But you never want anything bad to happen. And then, yeah, just a bit of luck with that and bad luck with that. And then, can't remember if it was before or after, Naden decides to just put the ball down on the try line, but put it down with so much force he breaks his collarbone. So
yeah, didn't get the landing right at speed on that one, and again, 9 times out of 10, Dewey lands more than that. 99 times out of 100, Dewey lands and keeps running with the ball, no dramas. 99 times out of 100, Naden puts that ball down, rolls onto the inside of his shoulder, and he's fine. It just, yeah, like I said before, when it's going against you, it's going against you. I'm particularly, I don't want to say that Dewey doesn't offer more because he does, but I'm more disappointed by Naden in some ways because again, yesterday he was fantastic and he has been a shining light in that back line.
100%. 100%. Like, he almost broke the line in that first try just by running at speed. That's it. He ran at speed, ran in a perfect hole, and he, obviously tried to flick the ball out to, I think it was Toa on that wing. Flicked the ball out and he managed to hurl it over the dead ball line. But
he ended up in the end goal too. He just had to hold on to it.
Yeah, exactly. It was just, it just wasn't.
Yeah, so very, very disappointing. So the club has since confirmed that Adam Dewey's done his ACL for the third time on the knee, so that's him out for the season. And being the third one, who knows what happens from here? You would assume he'd probably go in and try again, being so young, but that's got to be a pretty hard thing to come back from. One is hard enough. I know I've done it. Anyway, so he's gone for the season, and I don't have an update on Naden. I know that it is a broken collarbone, and I put that somewhere in the realms of 6 to 8 weeks. Depends on the severity. Could be as long as 12. Could be as short as 3 or 4. But the fact that they were confident about that on the field indicates it's probably not a small fracture because he could respond as a number of different things. But yes, looks like we're going to be without our best centre for a little while as well. So when it's going against you, it is going against you. However, what is interesting is that by the time the bye has sort of wrapped up, I dare say that Tommy Talau might be available for selection again. Now, he didn't really impress us in his couple of showings before Hastings broke his jaw. Or his nose, sorry, not his jaw. But you'd probably suggest that he come back in for Naden, wouldn't you?
You'd say so, and then Noffer would come back in on the wing. So I'm pissed her off.
Yeah, I know. That's a tricky spot because obviously Nofaluma has been sort of pushed off to the back corridors, and I think there's good reason behind that, no doubt. And so it would be hard to recall him, but I guess you probably do, don't you?
You
that
have
situation.
You have
to drop Toa.
Yeah, he had. I think he was a reason for 2 or 3 tries just by poor defense.
Well, it was the 2 Makasivo ones.
Yeah,
and it wasn't because he rushed in or he made a poor decision in defense. They were marked. He was in for no reason. He was covering no one on both occasions and gave Micah essentially a free run to the line.
Yeah, because you stop. Sivo is not going to be stopped close to the line easily, regardless. But if you're caught in no man's land and you give him a free path and you try to knock him off from the side, good luck.
Yeah, and if you're in front of him and you're actually marking your man, particularly when they had the numbers, it was 3-on-3 both times. He made a problem where there was none and ran in between the centre and the winger, even though our centre had him covered, which gave Mike Acevo space he shouldn't have had. If he's in front of him, at the very least, he acts as a bit of a roadblock while Micah tries to run over you, and that allows your cover defence to get across and get a hit on Sevo. So, again, just someone, somewhere, every game, usually multiple people lately, have this penchant for just making schoolboy errors.
Yep.
And so those were the tries that Parramatta scored. 3 of those grubbers, which were really good kicks, but fluky bounces. I don't know what the percentage on those bounces happening again would be. And then 2 tries to Sevo because Toa was out of position for no reason.
Yeah, it's just, like you have a second half where majority of people are just doing a stand-up job. Like they're doing everything they can, and then one person lets you down. One. And you're like, oh. Like, yeah, he scored that, picked up that wayward pass and scored that try, but any any player worth a grain of salt would have done that. It's nothing special that he did. So, oh,
Yeah, it's very, very disappointing that people continue to make mistakes, but maybe we've got a lot of players that have actually stepped up this year. I genuinely believe it, and it's so ironic considering the year that we've had on and off the field. But if you go through a list of those younger players in particular, you can probably list 4 or 5 that have gotten better. That's not including the people who haven't played great or the people that have come in, which we don't have a reference to. Like we go down that list, Staines improved from what we expected maybe at the start of the year, but he is a new signing. Kapoa, definitely.
yep,
Naden.
yep.
Then you've got Stafford Toa, who is one who has regressed, or it seems to be. Tupou, I mean,
Yeah,
just doesn't need to be discussed.
no.
Stefano had a low Stefano had a low year last year, so he's probably equal. He hasn't improved as of yet. He had a good second half though. Keep going down. They're all signings. 4 signings: Appy, Clemmer, Papley, Bateman, Pole improved.
Yep.
In bigger minutes. Jack
Simkin?
Simpkin improved. Yep. Sean Bloor.
No, he had a shocker on the weekend.
What about overall though? I guess it was a pretty small sample size in many ways, wasn't it?
Yeah, it is. I I want more, to be
From
honest.
Bloor.
Yeah. I
You
think
want
that
more from Bloor.
yeah, I don't think he has solidified a spot for himself yet at all. Not the way that, like, look, Toll's not flashy. Toll doesn't do anything, but he's dependable. And that's sometimes you need that. Just one person that's dependable in your team. So Toll, you'd like to say, has solidified himself on that bench. I think Joffa, whatever he did wrong, I think he redeemed himself on the weekend. I think he came on and he had immediate impact. But yeah, Blaw's still up in the air for me.
That's funny because I would pick Sean Bloor over Toll any day of the week.
Not at the moment. My
Yeah,
opinion.
yeah, I'm saying I would. Um, I don't think the Twal offers anything anymore. To be honest, I'd rather someone a bit more dynamic in there, like a Matamua or somebody. Let's go into pontification stages now ahead of obviously the bye this week coming up. So there's no team lists for us, no discussions to talk about there. But we're going to have some selection headaches moving forward with Naden and Dewey both out. So we'll get to talking about that. Before I forget about it, one thing I wanted to make mention of is when they moved Bateman to the middle on the weekend, I thought he looked really good.
Oh yeah.
I reckon, and I eat my words here because I think in the preseason you suggested that Locke might be a good choice, and I was a bit so, wasn't sure. And he's done it a couple of times in the season, but this is the first game I really noticed, and I'm really impressed with that. With the
100%.
idea of I'd so much so that I'd start him.
Yeah, yeah.
I'd start him at like
I think I understand adding him at the end. I think that you put Polo at lock to take that aggression out first in the middle. You take out, you're gonna have their defense rushing within that first 20 minutes. And then when they get a little bit sluggish, then bring him in and to have his ball playing skills and things like that. But perfect example of what he added. I don't think there was a time that Appy looked like he was about to take off that Bateman wasn't by his side. I do not honestly don't think. I think
he's a
Bateman was
competitor up the middle.
all the time. He was there
Mm.
every time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I personally like the way it's set up now. I like that idea of having Pole there to Pole himself, we know he's got skill. We've seen it develop time and time again. Oh, we've talked about it developing time and time again. We've seen it over the course of the first 6 weeks. There's been a number of consistent performers in our team, and he's one of them. and he's got great footwork, bloody strong leg drive. I think it's very rare that you get him down to the ground with the first contact. You get a couple in there, and he usually gets about 2 or 3 minimum post contact meters, if not a lot more. So he takes that sting out, and then when you've got your tired forwards, you bring in a Bateman who will, take advantage of those, slow rucks and slow markers, and then get the ball out wide because he's a 5'8". You can see it. So,
Yeah, no, yeah, everything you said, I agree with. I'd be tempted to start Bateman in lock and have him play lock the whole game, so then he can offer what he offers, not just later on in the game, but from the get go, which evidently has been one of our problems, which has been starting slow this season. We do come back at teams pretty good, so. And Steph is a perfect example of that. Like his second stints have been 10 times as good as his first stints this year that have been quite underwhelming. Particularly yesterday, he had some monster charges, which were really impressive.
He did. I thought he was going to go over a couple of times when we were on their line. So, yeah, he definitely, like you said, an angry Steph is a good Steph. He just seems to, and he's got a bit of anger behind him, a bit of, the boilerplates are, popping off a little bit. He just seems to have to go another gear. So, yeah, and being hooked probably does that to you. So, if you're a competitive person, which he seems to be, so.
Yeah, so, yeah. No, hopefully he continues to trend upward because I think he hasn't even begun to scratch the limit of what he can do at the moment for me. We'll talk about centre and the half situation in a moment, but just on what we're talking about with that combination through the forwards there, I'd be happy to see Papali'i and Blore in the second row with Bateman at lock. I'd push Polle back to the bench. I'd have Steph on the bench with Polle, and then I'd have Joffa starting. I think we've discussed something like that before. So my bench, I think, would be really dynamic, and I'd have Simpkin, Steph, Polle, and Matamua. That'd be my bench. You got Steph and Polle as props, middles. You got Matamua who can cover probably a middle if you had to, lock, second row. And you got Jake. I reckon that'd be a really dynamic, youthful, attractive bench.
I wouldn't say no.
So,
but yeah, I still
exciting.
I love Twally, so I want a spot for him.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I like him. I just think that we've got to look to the future, and I know he's not that old, but he need more. Need more, in my opinion. All right, so let's get to. We'll leave the big one for last, I guess. The half conundrum. It probably spells itself, but we could talk about some other options maybe. But in the centres, what do you see happening versus what would you do in terms of filling that spot for Naden and maybe the issues around Toa?
So for me, I would obviously, I think Talau is our next best option. So Talau comes in straight to center. I would not persist with Toa in there at all. I'd bring in, I would bring in Noffa back, even though he just looks like he's uninterested as well. But at least with Noffa, it's very rare that he gets caught out like that. He usually just gets caught out by jamming. It's just his defense is better than Toa's, and
Here's one for you. What about Dane Laurie to the wing?
I don't know how he'd defend.
Well, you'd probably say that he's as good of a defender as what Nofaluma is. Charlie Staines.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I can't usurp Staines from fullback, but maybe Staines defends at fullback, at wing, and plays offense in the fullback. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he's as much as Dane does leave some balls bounce, he also can be really good under the high ball too and attack balls aggressively. We've been really impressed with his kicked a few at times in the past. He's just in a rough thing at the minute, but he could be another option there in attack as
He could
well.
be. He could
If
be.
you have a half, go down. If you have a fullback, go down. You slot your winger across, ready to go. He's in the team. It's not like we're picking him over anybody else screaming out. The options are basically Toa, which because his defense be worse than Toa. Like that was pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
At least Laurie's brave and puts his body on the line.
Yep.
The other option would be Nofaluma. That's all we got. And Nofaluma was dropped because his attitude sucks and he's on the way out and he's just been injured for the last 2 or 3 weeks. So he'll be back by then, availability wise. But it's not like we're keeping out a junior Tupou in reserve to at the suggestion of playing Laurie. Anyway, just something a bit left field.
I wouldn't say no. So, but
Yeah, I agree with you with the centres though. I think Talau slots straight in, provided his nose is right in 2 weeks.
Apparently he was cleared last week. So,
Okay, well that makes sense.
yeah.
Yeah, that was about 4 weeks or something. So
yeah. So
yeah, there you go. All right, mate. The half situation now. The obvious first play is that Wakeham comes straight back in.
yeah, that's probably what will happen. But again, you've talked about Dane Laurie training at 5'8". So that's another option. Third option, and I thought about this today, is officially sign Will Smith. Because Laurie's gone for the year. So it's not like
Dewey.
Dewey. Dewey's gone for the year. So we need that half backup. Like we need them in the NRL squad, not just the New South Wales, the Cup squad. So that's another option is signing Will Smith to a 1-year deal, and then having him there as well because he has been doing quite well at New South Wales Cup as well.
So. Yeah, he's been okay. I watched him on the weekend. I watched that game pretty closely, and he didn't really do much on the weekend.
Right,
But
no one did too much.
Yeah. Did you watch that game?
No.
Oh gosh, the amount of drop balls in that game were just it was like they were intentionally trying to. Anyway, I digress. For me, I wouldn't do that with Will Smith. He's on a training trial and New South Wales Cup contract, so he can play after round 10, which means you have to wait another month, but it'd be round 11 by then. And I don't think that he's the type of bloke that's going to possibly then send you on a 10-game winning streak. So for the matter of 3 or 4 weeks, I'd leave it. And then if you want to after that time, then great. But yeah, I agree. I think Wakeham comes straight in. Laurie's an option. Don't say how popular of an option he is, but he's an option. I've heard some people make the joke of putting Jake Simpkin in at halfback. I thought that was hilarious. Some people suggest they move Appy Coruscant.
Don't do that.
Our gun hooker to halfback. We all saw how that ended with Robbie Farah.
I was about to say, remember when they did that with Farah? And it was Sheens that did that too.
But all of a sudden we seem a little bit short in the halves. We've only got one injury in there, so that's what happens when you give away 2 of your halves in the off season. I think that Wakeham comes in there. I think he's the best choice. If they're going to hope to continue to revive this running Luke Brooks role, then someone has to take control. Dewey did a little bit of it on the weekend, but he wasn't that good. Not that he wasn't that good. One, he's out for the season, but two, I don't think it's natural in his game. So if you can have someone there like Wakeham to just be able to do the very, very basics, think of like a Lachlan Ilias from last year. All he basically did was shovel on, kick where he needed to kick to the corners, get ball to his playmakers around him, and then just back up the middle. Then he'll do his job. And I think he can do that in the meantime. So that's probably the option that we go with, I'd say.
Yeah, look, I think it's very clear that I think we've still got 2 slots to fill before July.
Just the one at this stage.
Oh, it's the 2 if Noffa decides to go back to Melbourne, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So 29 at the moment because we released Mamalo. We were full, so we got 1 slot back. And some talk about Nofaluma and whatever else. So we'll see if anything of that happens over the bye weekend. They might be getting a bit of admin work done in the meantime.
So look, you have to say that, we've got one backup half. We've got two. We need another. So I don't know, like, do you just pull the trigger and find somebody from who's off contract to just fill that void now? I don't know. Who's not getting a run? Like, who's not getting a run? Um, Blake Taft's not getting a run, really. Um, Shit, who else? Adam Clune, he's not getting a run. Like, it's just, we get one more injury to our halves, and yeah, we don't have the greatest halves to begin with, but they're very thin, very thin, and that just proves when with Dewey going down, what's happening. So yeah, and then
Yeah, we're a Luke Brooks injury away, basically, from playing Brandon Wakeham and Dane Laurie in the halves.
yeah, exactly. So
Touch wood. Yeah, so we've got a few selection issues, and that's a shame because, as we said, we're really impressed, at least with the second half and the way they came back in that game. It shows Ticker to be able to come back. It's clear that they are putting in effort. They're winning a lot of areas of these football games, and I know it doesn't look like it now, but this is a better side who, let's just say, they are capable of playing better football. They are playing better in a number of areas. It's just not yet showing on the ladder and in the win column, but hopefully they will continue to do so. In the meantime, Toby, we've got the bye this weekend, so no games to report. Hopefully, Tim Sheens gets his wish and we'll win the bye.
yeah,
He was hoping that was going to be the case.
that's a great joke to make when your fans are already pissed off.
Yeah, my kids were crying.
Yeah.
And then he went and said that when we all watched the press conferences as a family, as we do in my household. But you don't have traditions like that?
No. I usually at the moment the traditions in my household is cry in a shower.
Cry in the shower? That's just you after a Tigers game.
That's just me in the Tigers game. Kids wondering what's wrong with Dad. I'll watch the
Very,
Tigers play.
all right, mate. Well, we might just wrap it up there. I think on that note tonight, we've got Manly to talk about next weekend, and hopefully we obviously will have a bit more insight into what they're thinking with the squad selections, and we can break that down then next week. As always, don't forget to listen to Westlife Podcast and the West Tigers Podcast. They are two of the best, particularly if you like all things black, white, and orange, as we do. Mate, you got anything else to add for the eve?
No. I think actually went a lot longer than I thought it was going to be. I didn't think we'd have a lot to talk about, but as always, we just tend to ramble. So
It's part of what makes this podcast just good old yarn between two tiger heads.
yeah.
That's why we tune in. All right, mate. On that note, I think we better wrap things up. We'll see you all next week. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget Facebook, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Add the page Tiger Town Podcast. We'll see you next week. And as always, mate, go the West Tigers.
Go the Tigers.